I don't think I'm gonna surprise anyone if I say that back in 2016 when Dead by Daylight just released, healing was absolutely broken. One full health state used to take 12 charges, and provided that one charge equals 1 second, we get 12 seconds as the default healing speed. By today's standards, this would be considered no less than a healing apocalypse, but trust me, we're just scratching the surface with this one. To begin with, in this version of the game, survivors had only one medkit, and it was the yellow one. It had 16 charges, which could only heal one full health state, leaving you with 4 extra charges. However, you could expand it with gel dressings and bandages, which would give it a total of 40 charges, and that already equated to more than 3 health states. On top of that, this medkit was also supposed to considerably increase the altruistic healing speed, but in reality, this effect also applied to self-healing. So if you use the medical scissors and butterfly tape, you could reduce the healing time to about 6 seconds. And here I'm just gonna remind you that the so-called insta-heal add-on in the current patch takes 24 seconds to proc.
Didn't quite get that, but I'm pretty sure I still have it. And... wow, I lost the momentum, but still, that was insanely fast.
By the way, talking about insta-heal, these days it's just a buzzword people use out of habit when referring to the anti-hemorrhage syringe, or if they started playing before patch 3.3.0, then also the styptic agent. However, back in the day, these medkit add-ons actually allowed you to fully heal yourself and your teammates with just a press of the spacebar. The difference between them was that the styptic agent could heal only 1 health state, whereas the syringe had the capacity of 2, and you could use it to instantly heal a dying survivor back to full health. But no matter how busted the original first aid medkit was, you couldn't rely on it forever, cause sooner or later it would still run out of charges. But you know what wouldn't? That's right, self-care. Old self-care was the definition of a god tier perk, cause it allowed you to heal yourself without a medkit, just try not to freak out, at 80% the normal healing speed. Now, theoretically, this should be equivalent to about 15 seconds. However, in reality, no matter how many times we tested it, the result was always 8 seconds.
I'm just gonna give it one last try. If it's gonna be as fast, then I guess we're just gonna have to assume that it's like 8 seconds, actually. I think it's as fast as we thought it would be. There you go. 8 seconds!
The only explanation for this I can think of is that by mistake the devs forgot to give self-care any healing penalty at all, and instead they actually boosted its healing speed by about 30%. In any case, that was not the only crazy thing about self-care in this patch. It also had the secondary effect, which increased the efficiency of medkits by 100% when used for self-healing. Boring math aside, it meant that if you had a medkit with 2 add-ons for extra charges, self-care would make it last for almost 7 full health states. Not that you needed it, considering that healing with self-care was equally as fast, but I still decided to show it to you just so you understand how messed up DBD 1.0 was. And technically, you could mess it up even more by bringing other perks that synergize with self-care and medkits, such as, for example, Leader, Resilience, Botany Knowledge, and so on. But truthfully, nobody cared about them, cause speeding up something that already took seconds seemed like an overkill. Plus, some of those perks required so much luck and coordination, they were completely overshadowed by the simplicity of self-care. The first attempt to balance self-care was made 2 weeks after the official release of the game. Patch 1.0.2 reduced its maximum healing speed to 50%, and judging by what we saw before, I was expecting the self-heal timer to be about 16 seconds. But somehow it increased to 24 seconds. Alright, hit. Okay. Now let's actually see how slow that's gonna be. Alright. Alright, I mean, it is slower. It is slow. I don't know how much slower, but like it's definitely not as fast as it was before. I guess the 1.0 self-care was actually bugged and was never meant to give you such an insane value, but surprisingly it didn't affect the popularity of this perk. After all, it was still fast enough, plus its secondary effect remained untouched and you could still use it to create infinite medkits. A major upgrade to healing came out in the patch 1.1.2, where the devs introduced 3 new medkits. Camping Aid Kit had 8 charges and considerably increased the altruistic healing speed. Absolutely useless on its own, because it wasn't enough to heal even 1 health state. Okay, now let me show you something. Here's like a full gray medkit, right? I'm gonna start healing.
Alright, almost there. Watch. And I'm still injured. Much useful, very wow.
Emergency Medkit had 16 charges, tremendously increased the altruistic healing speed and moderately decreased the charge consumption rate. Pretty much a faster version of the yellow Medkit. Ranger's Medkit had 24 charges, considerably increased the altruistic healing speed and moderately increased the good and great skill check zones. Basically the best Medkit in this patch, which was enough to heal exactly 2 health states. Additionally, in this patch, Behavior introduced 5 new medkit add-ons, among which there was Gauze Roll with 8 extra charges. Combined with the nerfed gel dressings, which now gave 10 charges, you could expand the purple medkit to the steaming 42 charges. And with the efficiency boost from old self-care, it translated into 7 full heals without any speed debuffs whatsoever.
Damn, this medkit is freaking forever. Go again. I swear, if that's gonna give me like another full health state, I'm gonna freak out. And wait, I think it is going to give me one more health state. And I still have some charges left.
The first step to tone down medkits was made only 1 year after the release of this patch. Seeing how the root of the problem was the secondary effect of self-care, Behavior decided to reduce it by 80%. Pretty radical, but it was the right thing to do, and now even the most OP medkit with the best add-ons couldn't be used for more than 4 heals. Surprisingly, survivors didn't start crying about this, at least not too much, and the reason was that they simply didn't care about medkits. I mean, why would they when they still had self-care? However, what they didn't know was that they were only several patches away from the demise of their favorite perk. Patch 2.1.0 came out on the 24th of July 2018, and it brought some bad news. The devs buffed Sloppy Butcher. From now on, it didn't just make survivors bleed more frequently, but it also made them mangle, which slowed down their healing by 20%. It wasn't that noticeable when being healed by your teammate or using a medkit, but if you wanted to power through it using self-care, boy, you were in for a big surprise.
Alright, now, after 1.1, I am legitimately scared to see this healing speed. Alright, let's go. Oh my god. Self-care was dead in this patch, I swear. That's just no.
Long story short, in order to do this, you would have to spend 40 seconds holding M1 and hitting skill checks, and just so you understand, by the old standards, you could complete half a gen during this time. 3 months later, an even bigger nerf to healing came out. In the patch 2.3.0, Behavior increased the amount of charges of one health state from 12 to 16. This effectively made it so that survivors now had to heal 4 seconds longer. And again, overall, it wasn't that bad, but unfortunately for self-care, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. The amount of time it now cost survivors to heal was simply not worth it. High-ranked players didn't see it as a meta perk anymore, and they started switching to other, more viable options. Basically, starting from this patch, self-care became a meme, and for the most part was only popular among new players, immersed survivors, and generally people who didn't understand what the fuck they were doing. By the way, if you made it all the way to this part of the video and you think it was worth it, then maybe it also makes sense to click that subscribe button. I'm planning to make more videos like this. For example, the next one is gonna be a detailed dive into the history of Spirit. So if you don't want to miss it, make sure you actually drop me a sub. Roughly since the second half of 2018, the game started slowly discouraging survivors from healing at all. It wasn't done through direct nerfs, but rather through adding new killers that made healing practically irrelevant. The first such killer was, of course, Legion. His power basically allowed him to injure survivors for 2 health states with just 1 hit. And if you wanted to get back to full health, you first had to mend yourself, and only after this, the game would allow you to heal the actual injury. This took ages, and even if you were crazy enough to go through this hell, Legion's unprecedented speed allowed him to get back to you within seconds and cancel all your hard work with just a press of M2. Naturally, no one liked the idea of spending 80% of the match trying to heal, so So as Legion's popularity was growing, more and more survivors preferred to stay injured when going versus him. Later, when Plague joined the roster, things became even worse, because her power gave you the broken status effect, which literally rendered you unable to heal. That is, unless you wanted to drink from one of her fountains, and thus give her arguably the most disgusting ranged attack in the history of Dead by Daylight.
No, go there. Go behind that thing. Go behind it. Yeah, okay, like this. There you go. How did you like that? I didn't even have to aim.
Meanwhile, Bhvr was desperately trying to adjust the medkits in order to make them comply with all the changes they did to healing. By the patch 3.3.0, they went so far with this, the medkits we once used to know became completely different items. The most drastic change happened to the green medkit, which now had 16 charges and tremendously increased not only the speed at which you healed your teammates, but also the speed of self-healing. The last part was what a lot of survivors liked in particular, because it meant that by equipping this medkit with the proper speed add-ons, they could essentially bring back the original self-healing speed from the patch 1.0. The fastest add-on combination back then was abdominal dressing plus self-adherent wrap, which allowed you to heal yourself in 8 seconds. It was so fast, some survivors were cheeky enough to try and heal right during the chase before the unaware killer could even understand what they were trying to do.
How comes there's like no pallets here? And we still get to use this pallet. And basically, I'm healed. See, this medkit is like so OP.
The reason I brought this up is because it was one of the 2 reasons medkits would receive a major nerf in the patch 6.7.0, with the other one being the infamous circle of healing. Ever since Bhvr decided to get self-care out of the game, they started offering survivors alternatives that would be able to replace it without ruining the balance of the game. Since the patch 2.3.0, every new healing perk that didn't suck too much tried to become the next self-care. However, they all failed, except for Circle of Healing. This perk was introduced in the fall 2021 as a part of the Hour of the Witch DLC. It was one of the 2 first boon perks, and originally used to give survivors the ability to self-heal without a medkit, along with a healing speed bonus of 100%. I honestly have no idea how this passed the beta test. I guess the devs were afraid that if the speed bonus was lower, survivors simply wouldn't want to go through the trouble of looking for totems, blessing them, and then also staying within 24 meters from them just to be able to heal. In any case, the popularity of Circle of Healing skyrocketed as soon as the new DLC was released. After the 19th of October 2021, every match was almost guaranteed to have at least one survivor with this perk. Sometimes it was more, and in this case they could chain multiple boons together and turn the entire map into one big circle of healing. The irony of this situation was that by introducing this perk, the devs basically flushed all their attempts to balance healing down the toilet. Circle of Healing didn't just replace self-care, it took the healing possibilities to a whole new level, and just like before, the devs were forced to start gradually nerfing it in order to save their game. By the spring 2022, Circle of Healing had already gone through 2 nerfs, and at that point its healing speed bonus was reduced in half. What also helped killers battle it was that in the patch 5.7.0, Sloppy Butcher received one more buff, and on top of the already existing effects, it could now also regress incomplete healing actions. Though in reality, the new Sloppy Butcher was more damaging to self-care, which, believe it or not, was somehow still popular, to the point where the devs actually had to nerf it again just to make sure that people finally move on from the 2016 meta. In the patch 6.1.0, self-care healing speed was reduced to the ridiculous 35%, and it no longer provided any medkit efficiency bonus. Nevertheless, killers seemed unhappy with how fast survivors could heal, and in some time their complaints were heard. On the 29th of March 2023, about 2 months prior to uploading this video, the community was presented with a new public beta test. It had an insane amount of changes, with the most notorious ones being the healing nerfs. First and foremost, survivors' base heal time was increased to 24 seconds, and the bonus from hitting the great skill checks while healing was reduced from 5% to 3%. Basically, now healing 1 health state took twice longer if you compare it to the healing speed in the version version 1.0. To make sure medkits were enough to heal only one health state regardless of their rarity, they were reworked into having 24 charges, and their healing speed bonus was now applied only to healing your teammates. The latter was done to specifically address the issue with the green medkit, which prior to this patch was the only medkit that could boost the self-healing speed. Lastly, the devs nerfed Circle of Healing. They made it so that it no longer unlocked the self-healing action, and instead, just like with medkits, the 50% healing speed bonus affected only altruistic healing, which basically turned it into a variation of Botany Knowledge. Such drastic changes immediately sparked a controversy in the community, and namely, people pointed out that increasing the base healing time to 24 seconds was a mistake. Short clips started popping up here and there, demonstrating how the new healing speed could lead to some nasty situations where the game basically became a progress bar simulator. My favorite one was from Potato Legion, where he managed to slow down self-care to 6 minutes.
Now, this is the world's slowest healing in the game. Leverage, Pensamento, Sloppy Butcher, Claustrophobia, and I can't miss a skill check.
Naturally, behavior had to ease in the nerfs, and when several weeks later this patch finally went live, it turned out that they completely scratched the idea of making base healing longer. The medkit changes were for the most part capped, except for since the PDB they were actually buffed and now could increase the altruistic healing speed up to 50%. Circle of Healing received a buff as well, and now its healing speed bonus was back to 100%, just like when it was first released. However, it still didn't allow survivors to heal themselves without the help of their teammates, but hey, I mean, it's still better than what it did on the PTB. Anyway, that's what we have in the current patch. I wouldn't say that healing right now is that big of a problem. Survivors have a ton of options to do so, and none of them seem to be super busted. But knowing behavior, I'm pretty positive that it won't last forever. Sooner or later, they're gonna drop another DLC with a new healing perk that was deliberately designed to be OP. And when enough people fall for it and buy the DLC, they're gonna nerf the perk and pretend they had no idea it would become so strong. And then the cycle will repeat with more DLCs, more perks, and more nerfs, cause that's how DBD works.